Vulcans built equations to map the stars, but the one thing they could never calculate was the chaos of a human heart. That failure haunted their scholars, for Vulcans trusted in numbers more than faith, in prediction more than chance. But when humanity stepped into the galactic stage, the equations bent, cracked, and finally broke. It began as an experiment. The Vulcan Science Council, concerned by humanity's reckless rise, built an enormous predictive model. They called it the Great Simulation, a web of logic that mapped every decision by probability, every likely choice weighed against history, psychology, and precedent. In their quiet halls, Vulcan mathematicians whispered that, with this tool, they could anticipate human actions, contain human chaos, and guide their wild impulses before they threatened the galaxy. At first, the results seemed promising. The model predicted humanity's expansion into nearby systems. It accurately foresaw the alliances they would form with Andorians, Tellarites, and even the distant Denobulans. It charted trade, colonization, diplomacy, all laid out in neat percentages. For a time, Vulcans believed they had succeeded. Humanity, it seemed, could be measured. Then came the incident at Orphean Prime. The model calculated with 99% certainty that humanity would abandon the colony. A plague had swept the system, incurable by known medicine. Logic dictated retreat, sacrifice the few to save the many. Vulcan observers prepared their reports. But what did the humans do? They stayed. Not only did they stay, they improvised treatments, gambled with untested methods, and in the process discovered a cure that Vulcan science had overlooked for decades. The 99% collapsed to zero in a single act of human defiance. The council was unsettled but undeterred. They revised the model, adding new variables, more nuance, greater complexity. Surely with enough data, humanity could be contained. But then came the Battle of the Karen Belt. The simulation predicted surrender. Human ships were outnumbered, supplies depleted, morale exhausted. Logic concluded they would retreat. Instead, the humans launched what they called a suicidal feint. Their captains dove into the asteroid field, lured the enemy inside, and collapsed half the belt in an explosion so reckless that even the Andorians stared in disbelief. The battle was won not through probability, but through audacity. The simulation did not simply miscalculate, it failed utterly. Time after time, the pattern repeated. The model foresaw retreat, but humanity advanced. It foresaw destruction, but humanity endured. It foresaw defeat, but humanity imagined victory where none existed. No matter how many layers the Vulcans added, no matter how many equations they solved, the simulation could not account for one variable: the sheer refusal of humans to accept inevitability. It was Tavor, a young Vulcan logician, who finally confessed the unthinkable. Humans do not behave as a probability function. They behave as if possibility itself is a resource they can mine. To Vulcan ears, it sounded absurd. To human ears, it was obvious. The council quietly shut down the great simulation. Its failure was not spoken of in public, but every Vulcan who had worked on it carried the same uneasy truth. Logic could map the stars, but it could not map humanity. For the Vulcans, this realization was not defeat. It was revelation.